So let's talk Something Beautiful, the album first. You've said that it's about healing. Healing what or who?
Well, I think, all of us, whether it's our past that we're aware of or something subconscious that we're kind of unaware of, at some point, I think we've all collected some sort of emotional luggage. And I think it's important to kind of inventory these experiences. And some of them, even the more traumatic ones, can be really valuable. And in the Something Beautiful universe, it was about highlighting how beautiful some of these more devastating times in our life can actually kind of become this real diamond that's been pressurized, and kind of the heat and the literal fire, that I experienced losing my house in Woolsey, and now seeing so much of that kind of rebuild physically and emotionally for me, artistically and creatively. But again, it was really something that kind of redefined what beauty is, and beauty can kind of wind up feeling something that's external, but it really feels like it's something that's authentic, that radiates from the inside out. You can't really fake it from the outside in.
Very true. You touched on this with the fire, but what is something in your life that from the outside looks ugly, but you've learned to appreciate as beautiful?
My first thought was myself in the morning, because I'm not always this, but what I like about myself in the morning and who I really am is, I think before I thought that those two personalities or personas, who I am and who the world may think I am. And it's always interesting for me to say the world, because I don't know how much the world thinks of me at all. But I think in somewhat of throughout my career, it's felt like people I don't know feel like they may know me, and kind of write stories for me. And so for me, that person that I wake up with and who I am when I'm laying in bed at night and I'm rethinking, just like everyone does, everything I did that day. And every day I try to end it with, it was overall a good day, even if things didn't go exactly the way that I would have designed them or planned them, but knowing that for me, it's always, time later reveals, I think, every day to you, not really at the end of the day itself, but at the end of the season.
But do you make a point at the end of every day to say, okay, here's what was good about today, here's how I can say this was a good day?
I can find, I think, the beauty in the things that I would have done differently, but I also am fine to confront myself and to challenge myself of what I could have done, not only better, because I think then there's too much judgment, but just differently. And starting every day with the idea that I'm going to kind of make the most of these different priorities in my life, which starts with my personal priorities, my relationships, just my kind of overall well-being, physical health, mental health, spiritual connections. That's always at the top of my list of my priorities. And then under those things, because the more holistically well those are, the more artistically free I am, the more creatively inspired I am, the more motivated and determined and devoted I can be. But I'm someone that does like things somewhat organized and pristine. And I feel like when my personal, kind of function and dynamics is not in alignment, then it's not really possible for things professionally or artistically for them to be what I want them to be. And we probably put too much pressure on our sources and our teams that, make this possible. But really it starts, I think, somewhere a lot deeper than that. You forget that, what you eat, what you think, how you spend your time actually determines, I think, your level of success and what's possible for you to bring in.
It's that basic in some ways.
I know, it's always the small things. They add up. They add up so much, so high.
You mentioned that relationships are a top priority. So let's talk about Secrets,
Yeah,
which you
the last
wrote
time I
for
saw
your
you,
dad. Yeah. When you were writing that song, were you thinking, I'm going to give this to him?
I didn't know I was going to give it to him when I was writing it. I, like anything, started it for myself. And I just kept imagining this white flag, which I never envisioned. I never even created or thought about the fact that in the video I kind of am actually a white flag. I don't know if anyone noticed, I am actually dressed as a white flag, which I never thought about that until I watched the video later and going, that's kind of weird, because that's what the symbol started.
This kind of idea of surrender, peace.
Yeah, and I started the song with the vision of this white flag in the wind, and it just kind of came to me actually as I was driving to the studio that we're at right now, and started writing the song in the room that's across from us right now, and just laid it down simply as a piano take and kind of as a diary entry, really. And then I had, I have my sources of the first people that I play my music for. And Dolly's one of those people, my mom, and that was a little tricky with this one because, my parents aren't together and I'm writing this song for my dad, and my mom, we actually have matching tattoos that say muse because she's typically my muse for all my music, really. I think I write a lot of my songs from her perspective. And I think that's maybe why I've always thought of her as a very, strong but sensitive, very vulnerable. I think she's probably got the most strength in the softest way of anyone that I know. And someone had said that recently about my songs, that they said that there's a level of this kind of strength in the softness, and that's all because I kind of characterize myself as her really when I'm writing.
It comes from your mom.
Yeah, definitely.
So did you play the song for your mom?
I did. I played it for her, and I think at this time, all of us, as I said earlier, about just peace and kind of cleanliness and this sense of everything is as it should be. And I usually don't like the way should sounds because it feels like you're doing something because you're supposed to or you're expected to, not because something that you want. But when it came to our family and our dynamic, I do think we were meant to be, unified. We're not a family that thrives in a divide, and sometimes families do. Sometimes it's the best and sometimes it's the healthiest thing. And I do think even you can still create your, healthy dynamics and boundaries that look new than maybe they did when I was a little kid where we all lived under the same roof. But now we're all adults and that wouldn't happen anyway. So I think, for me, looking at things is just because they're different doesn't mean that they're done. And just because something is over doesn't make it a failure. It's just a completion. And things can be done. And they can, I think the word completion is just kind of, I like to always kind of take an inventory of what's complete in my life. Because sometimes we keep working on things and they're already over and they just need to kind of be laid to rest.
And so is that kind of how you see your parents' divorce now?
Very much completed. I think my dad is in a better space than I've seen him in a really long time. Like me, I don't know how much of his life he remembers before being famous. And, my dad had a really different upbringing than I did. He grew up in poverty and, he had no idea what fame would feel like. And, even just who he was as a young boy was so different than who I was as a young girl. I was already, known around the world and famous and successful and had my own TV show. And I think that just who you are as a child is always still somewhat, I think, awake in who you are as an adult. And I think just me and my dad being so just diverse. I mean, it was completely different. And, for my mom, obviously, she had a very simple, not a lot of people had the upbringing that I did. So I always have to kind of respect them to know that they can't always fully understand the things that I feel just because, who I've become is so different through the development that I've had versus what they had.
And likewise.
Yeah.
How did your dad react when you gave him the song? You gave it to him for his birthday.
Yeah, my dad cried, which, I think everyone I say that to, they go, I remember when my dad cried. You don't see your dad cry a lot. And when you remember that, whether it's something, happy tears or painful tears, I don't know if I've seen my dad cry since his dad passed away. My dad, I haven't really seen that. And they were definitely I think they were mixed emotions because there's things that for us, me and my dad, we just kind of moved forward. We didn't feel that there needed to be a whole conversation because him and I just communicate better through song. And so once he got the song, it feels like it said something in a couple of minutes that would have taken, you know, maybe a family with a more structured therapeutic dynamic, a lot of sessions. But instead of us doing sessions, we just do studio sessions. And we send a song and we say, I love you, and that feels peaceful for us. And I don't think there should be any judgment to how people make peace. I think if you need that kind of guidance, and I think it's important to talk about it. But with me and my dad, we just have always communicated better through music with each other.
And you're at peace now with each other.
Yeah, we always communicate through songs. Half the time we don't even say, you know, good morning, good night, how are you? It's just a YouTube. My dad knows how to use YouTube now. So that's where he gets all his music. So he just sends me music constantly. And that's the best way that we communicate, for sure.
That's awesome. I want to go back for a second to the Grammys last year, because I distinctly remember sitting on the couch and watching you win, and my family and I, they're announcing, this is Miley Cyrus's first Grammy win, and we're like, what? And you even said in your speech, like, yes, it's important, but it's not important. You kind of tried to make it, you know, it is important, but it's not. So what did it mean to you?
I think for me, it allowed me to sink into the reality that in some way, for an artist, those discovered, those successful, those not, it doesn't matter. You dream of a Grammy. You and I off camera were talking about mastery, and I told you how much I admire it. It's someone validating that you've kind of mastered your craft, or at least that's what it felt like. And I think for me, I've spent a lot of time, because I haven't always been nominated and I haven't always taken home an award, and a lot of records that I've made, I think I may have had expectation, which is why it hurt really bad when it didn't come to this fruition. But what it did for me was allow me to accept the fact that somewhere it mattered, and I got to be excited for that moment. But I have, you know, put in the effort to continually to create without the compass of a Grammy. That's not the North Star. That's not the motivation. The motivation is always storytelling, joy. I enjoy making music whether anyone hears it or not. You know, I have hundreds of songs that I've made that nobody needs to or will maybe ever hear, but it's just the joy of the creation. So I think I was worried about getting a Grammy because I didn't want it to distract me ever or detour me, because I never expected to get one. That's why, I mean, I never expected Flowers to even really be successful. I just kind of thought it was going to be like anything else, that I believe in it, that it's my truth, my fans enjoy it, and that's kind of the end of that. And then when it became, you know, something super powerful and bigger than myself, it's kind of a legacy record. All of those, you know, those songs that I've had in my career are meaningful, but this one in particular, because it's something that I wrote myself and created, again, the diamond out of pressurization and heat. Really, I never would have written this song without the Woolsey Fires. It really is that celebration that you see in the video, that you see at the Grammys, that's as honest as it could be. Celebrating so much, more than just a Grammy. I think that's also what people saw when they saw that win on TV. They saw that it was more than a Grammy.
Mm-hmm. And you said you were worried about the Grammy changing you or your perspective in some way. Did it?
No, you know, I was worried about that because I'm, you know, I'm a more person. I like more. I don't ever try to kind of humbly say, you know, I'm just living in, you know, a still satisfaction every day. That's just, everybody over there will tell you that ain't me. I'm a very, I would say that I'm a very like satisfied, unsatisfied person, you know. In my life, I'm blessed, so I'm satisfied, but with what I create, I'm constantly really pushing. And I didn't want to, you know, in somewhat create this safety box of awards or winning, because I do think there's a bit of a barrier and a boundary that puts on your creativity, because you're now playing a sport. You're not really writing a song at that point.
That makes sense. Mm-hmm. And, you know, Something Beautiful has been called experimental. It certainly has not been called, this is going to be, you know, this is her trying to get another Grammy, right? This is more an experimental musical journey, right?
Definitely.
You mentioned at the top of our conversation that it feels like people know you. And I'm just wondering, what's that like to go through life and just have strangers think they know you?
Yeah, I think that's one of the things. I mean, I love my life, so I don't ever really I haven't made too much of a list of the things that are negative about it because there's so many great things. But I would say one of the things that I don't love and don't appreciate so much is when you meet somebody and they go, "Wow, you're like so cool. You're so smart. You're nothing like I thought you would be." And you go like, "Okay, I don't know what that meant." Or, when a couple years ago, before I was in a relationship, just dating, and people go, "Wow, I never would have thought that you really had it together. You're so wild," and whatever. And you go, "Well, you never really met me before." So I think that has shifted a lot over the last couple of years. I actually am really grateful for platforms like this one where I get to kind of sit and control my narrative. And I think I avoided press or these kinds of moments in my life because I like to talk for 40 minutes, not little increment clips that aren't the full story and the full truth. And I think that it does me a disservice to not use my own language because I can express and explain where I'm at more than people putting together the mosaic of all the little pieces, especially now I give so little, that the story is totally, kind of missing. There's so many pieces missing. So yeah, I don't, that's a tough one.
Is that why you avoid the internet? Because you'll see all these crazy, untrue stories about you?
Yeah, and the internet avoidance is less about myself and more about, the new kind of modification of, everyone, but especially hyper-focused on women, changing the way they look to fit a certain standard that we see online that's just, it's not attainable, it's also not real. I see, myself without makeup on every day. I see myself without the lighting. I know who I am, and even I present myself in a certain way online because who wants to show the medium version of themselves to 250 million people when you could show the best version of yourself, So I just avoid the internet because I use it my own way, and I know that I only show really the best of me. And I think that it's starting to evolve away from that. I think that now people really crave authentic content, but as someone that's been in front of a camera my whole life, it's pretty hard to capture authentic content. That would have to be truly out in the wild.
Right. What is authentic?
What is authentic? And curated authenticity is so icky to me. Anyone explaining why they are authentic or, kind of overly just, humanizing themselves in a way that feels that it's kind of tricky or markety, it's not my thing. I would always rather just be honest with when I show up, I want to show up at my best. And I don't think that's something that should be, that's what it is. That's what I've grown up around. That's how I feel comfortable. That's how I feel confident. And yeah, I'm just not someone that wants to show me at my worst on the internet.
That makes sense.
And have it live forever.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. How has your relationship with Hannah Montana evolved?
I love her. She's everything. I would have none of this. I mean, maybe I could have figured it out. Maybe I could have gotten myself from Nashville, Tennessee to Los Angeles. I don't know, but she did it a lot faster and better and set me up for the life that I have now. So love her. Gratitude, all of that.
You have this interesting, you just were talking about how I love that time in my life when I was partying, right? Mm-hmm. But you're sober now too, mm-hmm. and you've talked about how you love being sober. Mm-hmm. So explain that to me. How has sobriety affected you? How do you see it?
Mm-hmm. Well, I like showing up 100% of the time. I love that if anything comes in, an opportunity, I can say yes, knowing that I'm going to be ready. I don't have to get ready. The hardest part about balancing, any sort of substance use or drinking when you want to do what I do is you're going, okay, well, now I have to get sober for this thing because I want to show up my best. And now I get to trim out so much of the preparation of getting yourself into the right place mentally and physically. I'm just always ready. That's my favorite part about sobriety is being 100% of the time.
That makes total sense. One thing, going back to something beautiful that you mentioned, More to Lose, and it's on other songs too. Your voice is just so gorgeous in a way that, and I don't know if you think this too, but in a way that maybe we haven't heard before. Mm-hmm. And I'm sure part of that is done in the studio or whatever, but do you have a different relationship with your voice now?
It's changed a lot. I've had to kind of accept that it's fluctuations because I do live with, these different, my voice shows up differently every day. It's actually noticeable on videos or records. My voice changes a lot due to some of the, the kind of different anatomical way that my voice functions that doesn't make a lot of sense.
Does this come from the
I
vocal
have
surgery?
polyps. I needed a surgery, but I've always lived with this polyp. I've sounded like this since I was little. My dad used to have all the country singers come over to the house, and George Jones would, joke that I had smoked cigarettes or been up all night, even when I was 4 years old because I had this. So just kind of as the instrument itself, my instrument doesn't actually make a ton of sense. If you look at it through a camera, which I check it out often, it doesn't look like regular functioning vocal cords. Vocal cords are supposed to be pearly white and perfect, and they sit side by side, and they do very kind of standard movements, and that it's healthy tissue and all those things. Mine doesn't look like that. Mine makes no sense. But I think it makes perfect sense for me because it's imperfect. It functions in a unique way that I don't completely understand. It's something that I think gives me a good boundary with the sobriety as well, because it's something that I can always remember that the best maintenance for my instrument is sobriety, not late nights, taking care of myself, getting well slept, and vocal rest and all those things. And so I actually think that what I've been given, this vocal challenge, has actually been a real gift because it kind of works as a nice bumper for me. My mom always says, you need bumpers, not a bridle. You just need something on each side that tells you you've gone too far, and my voice is definitely that.
Your voice does that. If you stay up too late, you realize it.
Oh, yeah.
And you've said before that the sobriety thing was more about, it wasn't so much that the drinking or the smoking affected your voice, it was the staying up late?
Oh, yeah. I'm a talker anyway, so the last thing I need to do is continue that throughout the night. That needs to stop at some point. And the only time that really stops is when the head's on the pillow. So the more time the head's on the pillow, the better for my voice.
That makes total sense. It seems like you're kind of on this path of musical discovery. So what comes next?
We're having that meeting at 3 p.m. Team.
What does that mean? Like, what are you discussing?
Oh, I was supposed to, I have had this dream of taking all this time off next year, and all the things I was not happening. I, of course, like I said, booked myself out until 2028. Someone told me the other day, I can't do this thing. I'm a little bit busy right now. And I set my schedule until 2029 and was like, I'm a little busy too, but I feel like we can always find time to do a little bit more. That's my happy place, right? It's our happy place.
You like being booked out and being
Yes,
busy.
I love that harmonization of the team. Yes, because they know.
Everyone's like, yes, the happy place.
The happy place is, for me, and it's not a distraction, it's just being a musician is truly the best thing that you can do for a living if that's what you love. Any person that gets to do something that they're passionate about, that's creation, because for me, creation, I'm kind of in control. I called it God mode one time, because you're actually going, let there be, and it actually happens. When you listen to a record and you know this thing did not exist, and now it does because of what I put in, the energy and the effort, and then you're sitting with people that made it possible, the bonds that you create with them are very unique, and it just gives me such a fulfillment. I just deeply, deeply love it. So it's not this reason of, I have to stay on the treadmill because if I get off, all these things I've tried to avoid are gonna flood in. It's really not that. I've just been able to actually take care of the things we spoke about when we first sat down, which was the emotional luggage. I don't call it baggage because it's ugly. It's luggage. Baggage is hideous. I'm not gonna tote around all this junk. But all my trunks and my Louis suitcases behind me were filled with these traumas, and I've done so much work on them that now I just have so much freedom to create, and I'm just so inspired. I'm excited about it.
So why take a break?
Oh, I like the holidays like everybody else. That's always a good time. That's important to us as a family, very important to my mom that the holidays are spent together, and then that's plenty. Christmas Day, and we're back in.
Do you think, will there ever be another big stadium tour?
You saved it till the end. Well, for me, I'm not somebody that says these kind of, I'm a very definitive person, as I told you off camera. I'm a pretty sure person. But so much of my life has taught me about, that there's a difference in conquering something and being comfortable with something. And I've learned to be very comfortable with the idea that there is a maybe in regards to live shows. I wouldn't put myself into a definitive boundary because I never know. I've done so many things I never thought I would, and there's certain things I thought I would do that I've lost interest in. And so as of now, that isn't something that's, kind of setting my soul on fire. And I'm somebody that if it'll burn, and I'll know that it's time to do whatever that thing is. But I think for me, live shows, the reason I was saying conquering versus being comfortable is I think because live shows came with, it's obviously a lot of fear. Anybody that's putting themselves in front of thousands of people and everything is live and live vocals, and you create a show and you've rehearsed it, but things don't always go as they're rehearsed. And there's just so many elements to really conquer. There's such a conquering and such a confidence in doing live shows that right now I am in such a kind of comfortable and peaceful place in my life that I just don't feel like kind of taming that dragon right at the moment, because I'm so fulfilled doing the things that keep me at peace. I just don't feel like kind of setting myself up for that level of stress. And I also don't think that there's a complete dynamic or way to tour right now successfully and also keep our artists safe. So I'd like to be an advocate for that for other artists, to make touring safer for artists, because to make sense of it and to make a tour successful, a lot of it is just not really best, I think, for the kind of the heart and the physical body of our artists. That's why so many of them that I love aren't with us anymore.
Because touring just takes it out of you?
I think so. I think the dopamine, just the feeling of having thousands of people scream, "I love you," and then at night, laying in your bed, a lot of the time your family can't always, just because you've decided you're going to play 90 shows in a year, doesn't mean that everybody you love wants to go on a tour bus and play 90 shows. So a lot of the time you are alone. And so you spend these nights where thousands of people are telling you that they love you, and then you go lay down at night and there's nobody, and it's you just still kind of hear that roar. So I think the come downs, I think it sets up obviously a lot of that kind of substance issues, and again, just the physicality of touring. You're really an athlete, and for athletes, they have seasons and they have other teammates, and when you're a solo artist, you have a band, you might have some dancers, but it's really about you. Those thousands of people are relying on you. You can always have a B guitarist or another guy come in on the crew, but you can't replace you, and it's just too much pressure. And I don't like to fold my clothes. So I don't like touring because I don't like to live out of luggage. I like everything hung nicely, and I like to wake up in the morning, decide what I'm gonna wear. And when you're built into a show, that was one of the things about touring that I got really tired of, was putting on the same outfit every night. Because people get excited to see that particular show. They see it online and they go, "Oh, but
So they want that outfit.
I want to see that outfit. I want to see her slide down the tongue." But you're like, it was fun to slide down the tongue on Friday, but it's just like Tuesday. I don't feel like putting on a unitard and sliding down a tongue and like dancing on top of a gold car and like voguing with puppets. Like doing that every single day, it becomes a lot more fun for the audience than it comes for the performer. I had a lot of fun doing it. The first 20 shows were exciting, and then by the time you're doing it the 90th time, it's not as fun for me and not as fun for the audience, because I think they can feel when you're really enjoying it.
That makes sense.
That's why the Grammys came off so fun. It's because they were excited and I was excited, and it got to be honest and real.
So that's the thing. Even though there may not be a tour, will there still be these moments?
Yes, I think the moments, when they're well curated and designed and meaningful, I think that's what I really mean, is when these moments of performance can be meaningful are when I look forward to them. and the Grammys was so meaningful. These shows that I do intimately at the Chateau Marmont for only like 100 to 200 people, they're very meaningful. The show that I just did in Paris, that felt meaningful. So as long as something feels like it's more than just a performance, because for me that's only a night, but the Grammys gets to kind of live on. We spoke about it. It was kind of this like legacy moment, not just for me professionally, but personally, it meant a lot to me. And I was pretty afraid to do that performance. It's just such high stakes. And after the performance, the photo of me in the Bob Mackie became the profile for a confidence playlist. And that meant a lot to me because to represent confidence as someone who was very afraid on the inside, it's that conquering we talked about. It takes a lot of conquering.
That's huge because you weren't. There's a point where you weren't even going to go to the Grammys.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's huge.
I told the producer, I guess the week before, no, the night before. I told the producer the night before, I think I'm going to do the show. And he goes, well, what do you mean? Of course you're going to do it. You're booked. I was like, well, just, I don't know. There's freedom. I don't have to. And he was like, okay, you don't have to, but like you kind of definitely should.
Wait, so up until the night before the Grammys, you were thinking maybe not.
Maybe. I guess I do like maybe more. I like maybe for the things that scare everybody else. I like definites for like the things that don't matter. Like I'm definitely going to dinner at 5:30 tonight. I'm excited about that. Maybe. And that's, by the way, I'm going to dinner at 5:30. That's how you know I'm sober. Like that's crazy. But I'm going to dinner at 5:30. That's early. I mean, I open the sushi restaurant sometimes. They let me flip the sign because I eat at 5:30. But maybe when it comes to these performances, that's what's hard about tour too, is you have a whole year designed for yourself, a year in advance.
There's no maybe there.
There's no maybe there. Yeah.
That makes sense.
Too committal.
Okay, so this is a tough one, but what's the biggest thing you've learned through the making of this album about yourself?
I think what I've learned about myself that I really respect is not settling. This record, I had a vision, and there is no statistic, there's no number, there's no chart that could ever tell me that this record was not a success, because I had a vision and I made it a reality. And in not one part of the process did I cut any corners, or did I make it easy for myself, or in times now where everything moves fast and it's about the quantity and not quality, I never lost sight for 1 second of the meaning of what this record meant to me and the medicine that I thought it could be, not only for myself, the healing, but really for anyone who took a moment to hopefully enjoy it.
Beautiful. How has it healed you?
For me, artistic freedom is always healing. Sometimes when you're making the album, you have such a strong vision, and then as you get closer to sharing it, you start to chicken out a little bit, and you go, but how can I, for me, it's almost like putting a nutritious meal on a cake stand where you try to trick everybody. It's like when you have a kid and you put, vegetables in like the shapes of flowers or something to get them to eat it. Sometimes it feels that I've tried to kind of, like I said, not settle, but there's been an idea of how can I present this in a way that can still be successful and understood. And at this time, that wasn't really my focus. It was just, how can I look back on this and feel the greatest sense of pride? And for that, there's really no number. And that's what I don't like about the award shows or about charts, is because it's creating something that's, taking art and making it a sport, because there really can't be winning and losing, and there's not a best or a worst. It's all just, that's what I like about art. It's a matter of opinion.
Right.
And my opinion is this album is really good.
Yeah, there we go. And I was going to say, having said that, if it were nominated for a Grammy or two,
that would be great too, because the more I collect brass, and so it looks really well with the other accessories on the shelf. Correct? My mom, when I got the last Grammy, she goes, I know you, that you're just happy that it's going to match the other accessories. I was like, you do know me so well, because it does look so great with my other accessories. So it's very cool. And I love when people come into my living room. We're just watching like, trash TV like anybody else. We sit down to watch reality, whatever, and everyone goes, ooh, the Grammy, ooh, like I love that. I love it. But either way, super proud of the record. Anytime you're admired or you're nominated or you're validated for your work, it would be a lie to say that it doesn't feel really good. But I also am really just proud of the body of work, period, and nothing could really change that.